Hello, 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 hello. Like I said, welcome to the Black Butterfly Podcast. You are now in the cocoon room. I am Amaru, co-host of the Black Butterfly Podcast.
Hello, welcome to the podcast to Black Butterfly. I am Candace. I am the host of Black Butterfly.
And we have a special guest, Wirt alumnus, author, and Lakers fan to our chagrin, Alan Gaines. Go ahead and introduce yourself, brother.
Oh
Welcome.
man, Alan Gaines, man, happily married father for you'll get to know me as the interview goes along. But yeah, certified Bulls hater for sure. Bulls and Bears hater, Bulls and Bears troller for sure. So we go in there, I got all the smoke.
When I gave him a call, what was it, yesterday? He said, I know you ain't got nothing better to do. You ain't doing nothing because the Bulls ain't signed nobody. So
Yeah.
I kind of felt that. So, I mean, he was telling the truth. We ain't signed nobody.
Kobe White did resign though. Y'all got that?
He did. Yeah, he did. But that was nothing. But and Vucevic did too. But this podcast is about, this show is about Alan and his book. He is an author, and he's actually wrote 2 books. We're going to talk about the progression of those books. We're going to talk about the also some of the other things he's involved in. But before we get started with that process, I'm going to ask, do you have any opening thoughts, Candace and Alan?
I would just say, I know we haven't been on as much as you guys would like us to because we have been really busy, but we are excited to start the podcast again, and we'll be back on every 2 weeks. We're also excited that we have our speakers that are going to be coming on and sharing some interesting information with you guys. So just be on the lookout for any updates and things that we have planned moving forward.
Alan, yourself?
Yeah, man. I just want to tell you all I'm humbled to be on such a podcast, man. I think that to be chosen to send anybody to say, hey, I think your thoughts are important to be shared with the world is a humbling experience. So I just want to thank you all for choosing me.
It's all good, brother. It's all good. It's all good. We just waiting on Aspire BET to pick us up. So you know how that is.
Right.
Before we get started, we wanted to do. I'm sorry, you said scripture today, or I didn't know. I lost focus.
The scripture of the day.
And so I'll let Candace lead with that.
Ephesians 4:28. Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen.
What does that mean to you?
All right, so I chose this scripture, one, because I know oftentimes when we are sitting with friends or even with family members, even at work with coworkers, we tend to some people tend to criticize others, and it's not always constructive criticism. But, sometimes you never know what a person's struggle is. So if we don't have anything positive or anything to add to someone, then we shouldn't be saying anything, because oftentimes what we do or what we say, it hurts people as opposed to actually helping them. So if you don't have anything nice to say or you can't contribute to the betterment of someone, then you should just leave some things unsaid. So that's why I chose that one. And in addition, I chose it in reference to Alan's book, Beautiful, because he's basically talking about a lot of things that were stereotypical to women of color and to Black women. And he's trying to change the narrative of that. So
I appreciate that.
And so that is dope. And so obviously we want to lead in with the book title, Beautiful Just the Way You Are. And it's cool because I found it interesting when he started writing. And there you go. Just nice. Good plug. He, originally flipping the scripts, right? And so talking about some of the things, from a male perspective, you know, from men, right? And so talking about boys, and so some of the things that views that we shouldn't have, right? And so I thought it was interesting that he pivoted to, this book, and from a male perspective, talking about young girl issues, female issues, and so that is why I thought it was very important to have him on, because a lot of us, just to be honest, a lot of us are older, right? We have daughters, we are parents now, and so some of our views change as we get older. We become fathers, right? And so that's why I thought it was really refreshing to have him on. And so I would like to start with some questions. And my first question, obviously we should know this, but what was the purpose behind the book?
The purpose behind the book was I'm a girl dad. You know what I mean? Shout out to Kobe. You know what I mean? Rest in peace, Kobe and Gigi. And I say that not because I'm a Laker fan, but you know, he coined the term girl dad. But actually, the first book, Flipping the Scripts, was a reaction to a conversation that I had with a fellow teacher. So it was a young man, and he actually played Division I college ball. He just finished up his senior year. But I had him in fifth grade. And when I called back to check on him, you know what I mean? Somebody was like, oh man, he was doing such and such with old girl in the movies and yada, yada, yada. And it was kind of like a thought came to my mind as to why do black males on a certain path eventually start to change and go down the same path? Like what in our society, what in our culture, what in our environment starts to breed what society now calls toxic masculinity, right? So I actually just sat down with my thoughts and just like started typing them out. So that was never intended to be a book. I eventually later got wrongfully terminated, and I didn't have any money. I had a family. It was like, all right, well, let me just put this out. So it never was a conceptual thing to have a book, but it was like, okay, what would I tell my son if I wasn't here and I didn't understand like the writing process and all that? I just always been an opinionated person. People always told me I should write a book, but I didn't have like the training and thought process. So that's how the first book came out. This book, if you know what I mean, if you had both, if you see both, you're like, oh, okay, you learned something along the way. You know what I mean? And as they say, to know better is to do better, right? So as I went through the first one, I found my voice. I found that I couldn't just talk. Because that's really what the book was. The book was just like a conversation. The first book was just a conversation. Like, here's what I'm thinking. Let me just write. You know what I mean? Put a pin on it. That's the end of the chapter. Give it to people. You know what I mean? And it's good for us, like a podcast. Yeah, we can talk about these things because I wanted it colloquial. You know what I mean? I didn't want it wordy. I didn't want it analytical. I didn't want anything where people have to go find a dictionary to understand what I'm saying. I wanted a book that, you know, a black boy could pick up and be like, oh, I feel this. You know what I mean? This is me. This book was like, okay, I got 3 daughters, which I do. What do I tell them? Right? What do I say to them? But how can I tell them in a way in which you can give them a life lesson? Right? So I tapped into my inner griot and I gave stories. I gave stories about things that I saw because the book is an anthology. The short stories that the original was supposed to be 10, but it ended up being 8 because 2 stories in my mind I couldn't really get right, and I wasn't really cool with the product. So it's 8 stories that deal with what black women and girls and women, I'll say it that way, are facing. So how do I teach my daughter these lessons in a way in which it can last with them forever? You get what I'm saying? And if experience is the best teacher, write about a person's life's experience that you know has happened, that when a person can go back to, they can read it and they'll find something new about it every time. So that was the purpose of the book, to give somebody something that, or my daughter something that was like, oh, okay, this is what it means, because what it means to be a black girl in America. Because let's be honest, as we aspire to be better than our parents were and all these things, we start to put our kids in different situations that are different than the ones we grew up in. Right? You know what I mean? My kids go to a private Christian school. I grew up in public schools in the G. You know what I mean? Stuff that my kids are exposed to and seeing is completely different than what I saw. So how do I give them a taste of that life without overexposure to it? You get what I'm saying? Because exposing our kids, exposing anybody to things that we can't control, mean the outcomes can go either way. So that was pretty much the purpose of the book.
Ken, do you have any questions?
Yeah. My first question was, he answered it. What inspired him to write the book? What titles? You wrote about 8 different you had 8 different titles and then chapters, and you talked about the criminalization of African American girls, how sometimes girls look for affirmation from other males and things like that, and reassurance. And so those are some of the things that I want you to kind of elaborate on. Were you faced with some of that in your own family with some of your sisters or your aunts or cousins, girl cousins? What made you talk about those different topics in your book?
Okay, great question. I was a school teacher for 16 years. So a lot of these stories were firsthand accounts that I had from my years of teaching, black and brown girls in Gary, Indiana, and South Central LA. So if you the proper type of teacher, your kids are going to gravitate to you, right? And I'm a very personable person, so a lot of this, I wasn't missing games. I was pops, you know what I mean? It was, this like my daddy, because a lot of black people build that relationship, you know what I mean? Especially if you're a black male teacher, it's only 2% in the country, right? So they have to look at me as more, you get what I'm saying? And these situations were a lot of things that I saw from the girls that were in my classroom, some of which I encouraged them to speak out about different things they had or they experienced, and they didn't feel confident enough yet. They didn't have the strength. But then it's kind of like, okay, how do you give somebody hope that's going through these things, right? So in my class, I was always big on my class was a safe environment, right? I don't care what you're going through at home, because you don't know what the person next to you is going through at home. When you get in my classroom, you're definitely not going to be talking about nobody. You're definitely not going to be, doing all of the things that can make somebody not want to be in this environment. So a lot of these, by producing that safe haven, a lot of these young ladies and young men opened up to me about the things that they were going on, the things they were experiencing, and it was like, whoa, you know what I mean? It's heavy, what they're going through. So a lot of these experiences are life experiences from former students of mine, like you said, aunties, cousins, some of the stuff with my mom, some of the stuff with my sister, just all putting it all together. And, like, hey, okay, here it goes to the world, because if you read it, you can relate to it, black, brown, white, anybody, you know what I mean? So that was a lot of it.
Okay. So your first chapter, you talked about Rose. She was one of the characters. I mean, true story. If it's a true story, you talked about a character in the book. Her name was Rose. Can you just talk to us a little bit about that and elaborate as to why you chose that particular person and why that was the first chapter of your book?
All right, so I'm gonna correct you a little bit. So the first one is Lisa, right? But the first chapter of the book, the first 2 chapters of the book were about roses. So it's 4 symbols in the book, and I'll break them down.
Okay.
Right? So it was roses, dolphins, diamonds, and let me make sure, and butterflies, right?
And you're correct. So I correct myself. Lisa was the character, but Rose was what you're talking about. So I want to ask you, and I cliff notes. Rose was what I originally want to ask you about. You talked about a rose being one of the strongest flowers, right? It can sustain in any kind of climate. So just tell us a little bit more about that and how you related the rose to the black woman or the black girl. That's why I was going with that. I apologize. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, no worries. So the first 2 stories are about seeking validation from a male, and the second story was about like the criminalization of black girls in America, right? So the first story is Lisa, and Lisa was kind of what I was experiencing with my daughter. My daughter is 19 years old. She's about to turn 20 in November, but she's graduating from NYU. She went on a full scholarship for dance. Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, I'm flexing. But as she was going through high school, one of the things and challenges that she had was boys wasn't checking for her, right? Like, oh, the guys ain't checking for me. I ain't got no boyfriend, these types of things. Not that she wanted it, but I could tell me saying, oh, baby, you beautiful every day wasn't enough. You know what I'm saying? You go through that awkward stage, and you going through and you growing up, and it's kind of like, okay, you know what I'm saying? I'm seeing this girl get a guy, I see this girl get a guy, and, I tried to tell her, baby, it's your strength. Men by nature, especially as boys at that age, we weak. You know what I mean? I'm gonna go for the easy kill than the one I got to work and have this challenge for, because hey, my mind and my intentions aren't on building a relationship and building theirs. So, Asada, you could be the most beautiful girl in the world, but guess what? You give off something that I'm not ready for. So I don't want the rejection of being turned down. So that's what Lisa was about. So Lisa is a story of a girl who's seeking validation from the male. She knows she's all these things, but in order to really believe that she's all these things, she wants a guy to tell her that she is. So I kind of went nostalgic, and because America is getting rid of the skating rinks, and the skating rinks used to be a pivotal thing in the Black community, right? They actually did a documentary on it. But we used to go to the rink and hang out and have parties, and you know what I mean. It was a vibe, as they say now. It was a vibe, right? So it was about a girl who asked her parents, who basically kept her sheltered, can she go out? So she's like in her sophomore, going into her junior year, and her parents are kind of like releasing the reins a little bit, like, yeah, you can go out, right? So this is her first time. So all she's been living vicariously through her friends, going out to the rink and all, because that's basically their club and all of this stuff. And now she finally gets this chance to go out, and she's a little clueless. She's a little bit lost. You know what I mean? She trying to wear an outfit she thinks is cute, but she too covered up. Her girls are like, girl, whatever. Go over here to Takia's dresser and get something that's showing more. Ain't no boy's gonna be up on you if you dress like this. And she's like, oh, you know what I mean? Didn't really understand what was going on. So it's a lot of naivete as you go through it, but when she actually gets into the skating ring, a guy actually wants her. You know what I mean? And I'll leave it on the cliffhanger because, the guy's like, all right, cool. You know what I mean? He into her, get her Snapchat or whatever these people do now. We used to have to get the number. You know what I mean?
Yes, the paper in the pen, right?
Right. You had to get the number. You had to remember it. You know what I'm saying? But now you can just go to your phone and all that. So it was a little bit of that. But I created a scenario where the guy asked her to come back to the car. Now, it's not a moving too fast. It was one of those, he left his wallet in the car and he was going to buy something from the concession stand. And her friend had already went out to the car. So she kind of if I reject him, then he might not want me no more. But if I go, how my girl's going to look at me and what my mom would think and all that stuff. So I'll leave it there, and it's on a cliffhanger because you wouldn't be in that situation if you knew you were beautiful just the way you are. If you need somebody else to tell you that you are, then you can find yourself finding or searching for things that are already within you that can lead to trouble or lead to harm. So it was a story. It was a good feel-good story that was kind of like, all right, when you search for something outside of yourself, you can find yourself in a situation which is compromising that you don't want to be in, because at the end of the day, you know what I mean, you have to find your beauty from within. The second story was about the criminalization of Black girls. So it's a real dope documentary that they push out, you know what I mean? So I'm not sure if you all are familiar with Veronica McMorris, but Push Out. And she did a story. It's like a must see. But I noticed where the inspiration for that came from. I saw, and I was connecting the dots on how many Black girls were being criminalized. You know what I mean? Kicked out of school. We all see these clips and we ain't paying attention to them. We saw the girl get flipped over on the desk in North Carolina and drugged out by the cop. You know what I'm saying? We saw the cop slamming Black girls at the pool party. They arrested the girl for having a weapon. I want to say they suspended her. She created a volcano for her science project. The 6-year-old girl threw a tantrum and they cuffed her and threw her in the back of the car and took her to the police in Florida. They drugged the girl down the steps in Chicago for not want to give up her cell phone. Right? Like all of these things, rest in peace, Sandra Bland. All of these things have happened, and we're not looking at it in the sense of this is connected. You know what I'm saying? This is an attack. It can't be only when cops pull us over that we say, oh, it's police brutality. Well, what the cops doing in the school? You know what I mean? So what are we talking about when these things are happening in the place that you're supposed to be able to go and have a safe learning environment? So the analogy of the rose is that a rose can grow in any extreme climate. So you have two extremes, and that's what I was trying to talk about. You have the extreme of loving yourself, and the extreme of facing society that will tell you that you're not enough, right? And I tell you not enough by telling you a criminal. You know what I mean? I tell you you're not enough by unvalidating who you are as a person by saying, hey, you don't belong in my school. You know, I could pull you over. All these things that the world will do. Those are the extreme dichotomy that I created with the roles. So that was a symbol of either the world is going to tell you one thing or you're going to have to tell yourself one thing. But either way, you're beautiful because a rose, wherever it is, it's still a rose. You get what I'm saying? And if you give a person a rose, what does that say to them? You get what I mean? So that's why I use the rose.
Thank you for that. Do you think that there's any correlation between women of color, Black women, young girls, the exploitation of them in rap videos, music? Was it now they have the fan only page?
Only fan page,
yeah, only fans only page. You know, I even see it on the Instagram models now. You know, the way that women are being talked to, represented. Does it have any correlation between what's happening in like white America and then what we're doing in Black America? Because there still has to be some accountability. I know that for so long that we have been treated a certain way, but again, as you said before, when you know better, you begin to do better. So we have to, even though there is systematically we have been like treated a certain way, we still have to like honor each other. And so we'll talk about why I chose the word of the day. When we actually get there, we get into a space to where just because someone else is not treating us well, we begin to turn on ourselves and we don't treat ourselves well, whether it's through like the media, through music, and then, you know, we begin to objectify ourselves through certain streams. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. But I want to take that to its nature, right? When the European came and stole us out of Africa, right? It was a couple of institutions that they did not find, right? Mm-hmm. We'll go in order. They did not find prisons or jails. Think about that for a second. They did not find old folks homes. They did not find, what do you want to say, like foster homes, right? Not foster homes. What is when you let the kids go and they, because the foster home is that being there. Orphanages. Okay. They didn't have orphanages.
Orphanages. Yeah, because we typically take care of our own.
That's where I'm going. And they also didn't find brothels. Right? So if we look at those institutions, African people in a natural state, we take care of our elders, we respect our elders. We take care of our babies, we don't criminalize each other, and we don't sell our bodies. Mm-hmm. When they came to Africa, they didn't find those things, right? Mm-hmm. But we know that they were in Europe. All those things were in Europe. You get what I'm saying? So if you institutionalize people in America, all what you talked about is basically us being stripped from our culture, learning a new language, we've been programmed with the wrong downloads. These aren't our natural downloads that we have. So if I put water in my car, is it gonna work?
Nope.
Right? If I put water in my car, no matter if I fill it up, right? If I go and I put water, it's not gonna work. So basically what we filled up with to power our engine is something that's foreign to our bodies. So it ain't gonna work. It might drive, it might cut on because all the car knows is to cut on. But as it gets to going, what's fueling the engine is gonna destroy the engine. So being brought over here and raised in a culture that is not ours, we got the wrong download. So yeah, we're doing what has been systematically shown to us that now we're just in the mode of trying to profitize off of it as we exploit. But the exploitation of women didn't come from us naturally, because if it did, you would have those institutions in Africa. You get what I'm saying? So when we look at it, and it's not like passing the buck or passing the blame, because that was years ago, right? We should know better by now. But you should know better. But if you're still being programmed by the same system, I can tell a kid all I want. They cut on the TV, then what happens? You know what I mean? When you cut on the computer, what happens? If I download social media, what happens? The world is telling me something different. So what you have is a dichotomy of people who saying, hey, my parents are telling me one thing and the world is telling me another. Mm-hmm. When I start to combine or look at the two, most people are going to say, hey, I want to explore this world that is beyond what my parents are saying, right? So either way, if they go in there, while you use the Bible quote, but if you train up a child in the way they go with the Lord, they won't stray too far from it. But how many people are training their child up? You know what I mean? And I'm not even talking about just the Lord, but are you training your child up in a way in which what they value, what they
morals.
Their morals and values are something that can bring them back to looking at society for what it really truly is. You can't. So yeah, you're gonna have OnlyFans, because guess what? And that's funny you said that, because one of the stories, so the last story of the book is Beauty is a Beast, right? And the story is about light skin, long hair, girl that got it all, right? Like, this is what society says is beautiful, right? And it's the other side of it is a dark skinned, heavyset girl, right? So the light skinned girl in the story, her beauty is being taken advantage of, right? So everybody that's around her is trying to get at her. She the girl, she the this, she the this, you know what I'm saying? But she the trophy piece. Her beauty is what they're trying to take and use as their own. You get what I'm saying? And in the story, she was like, she tells her therapist, well, I'm sorry, it's not a therapist. She actually goes to, she gets in trouble and she goes to a juvenile detention center, right? And she's facing a case. But in the thing, she tells the lady, was like, I was just gonna grow up and be an Instagram model. Like, everybody been using me my whole life. So this was the way I was gonna, feed myself, right? But based on her circumstances, she didn't know who her father was. Her mom had her at like 14 years old, right? Like, all of this, the odds are stacked against her. She got into foster care. She was raped, molested. You know what I mean? All these things that happened. Then you see this baby who is, quote unquote, beautiful, who hasn't had the education. She's been through all these things. Can we really truly blame her for saying, hey, everybody else been using my beauty, why not I?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And I think what you said, definitely great. When I asked you to did you think that it was a correlation between it? I definitely know that Black people didn't start out wanting to be exploited. I definitely don't think that we, the goal was to exploit each other. But since it has been done, that's one of the reasons that we wanted to create the podcast, so that we can begin to educate our people, because we perish from a lack of knowledge. And now that we know better, I feel like it's our job and it's a goal that we educate people that look like us, so they want to do better. Now, you're going to have some people, what they say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it. And so obviously there are going to be some people that we share this information with, and they get the same information. Some people are going to apply it, and then other people are not going to apply what they have learned. But my hopes is that, just like you wrote your book, that people actually get the information and they actually use it and they apply it to their lives. Because at this age, if we're not putting information out there to kind of help change things are going to stay, consistent the way they are, and it's going to be a perpetuation of the things that are currently happening in our culture. So
I totally agree.
I got a question too. When you speak about exploitation, can you speak about, well, there's a couple of things I want to talk, well, we're going to pivot down the line, but the protection of our girls, because, I think when you talk about exploitation, some of that has been to a lack of protection from our just Black men, period. And can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, I think it's, again, like all these things in my research, it boils down to institutions, right? Like, everything that we're living through and trying to either escape or flourish within is an institution. You either built your own institution and system that allows you to work and profit and, live a healthy life, or you don't have a plan and you're going to be systematically plugged into a system that's going to basically do, think, and create for you, you know what I mean, for lack of a better term. So to speak about the exploitation, right, like, bro, writing this book actually healed a lot of wounds for me, bro. Like, it did a wonder on my mind as I had to put myself in the situation of young girls, right? Like, my wife got tired of me apologizing. Like, baby, I'm sorry. She's like, what are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry I even thought this way. I thought I did this. Or, you know what I mean? The different things, because it allowed me to deprogram and understand really, truly, the best that I could as a male, what someone may be experiencing and going through, right? And not only do we need to protect the black woman, black girl, black female, we also need to teach them to protect themselves, right? And protect themselves in a way in which doesn't call on the rejection of black people or black men in the process, right? Like we got this female empowerment, but it doesn't mean that calls out the black male in the process, right? You can be a strong black woman and still look for, desire, and want a strong black man. You get what I'm saying? You can be an independent woman and still want and desire and actually have an independent black man, right? So we're in a stage in which we're not acting as if both things can be together, right? Like those two truths can live in the same space. You get what I'm saying? So I'm raising my daughters to be strong and independent and all those things because I don't want them to be subjugated to feeling as if their life is contingent on their marriage and all of those things, right? But at the same time, that is what I want them to have. I do want them to have the beauty that they see that their parents enjoy when we laugh, we joke, the things that they have, right? So the protection actually comes from the knowledge, right? The knowledge, the system, and exposure. So if you're asking how do we protect them, we protect them by showing them the way. You know what I'm saying? Because everywhere my daughter's in New York, right? Like she just came home yesterday. My daughter's in New York. I had a lot of things that I had to figure out before I was cool with, and I live in LA, cool with her going to the other coast, right? So my son is in karate. I had to say, hey, you know what? I asked the grandmaster of the dojo, can they give her self-defense lessons? You get what I'm saying? I rode the subway. I sat 4 seats behind her and watched her ride the subway. Watch her ride the bus. Let her know, like, oh, okay, you crossing your leg. You know what I mean? Not clutching your purse. You know what I mean? You got your phone out. All of these things, because guess what? If something happens, daddy's on the other side of the country. You get what I'm saying? So those are the types of things when we say protection. I got to teach you to protect yourself because you're going to go into this world by yourself. So how do I make sure that you're empowered to understand where to be, where not to be, how to be where you're at when you're there? You get what I'm saying? So those are the types of things that I think really leads to the protection, because at the end of the day, no matter what, there's going to be a time in which these people, I'm not these people, but there's going to be a time in which your daughter, your son are going to be in the world by themselves. And they don't understand how to protect themselves, beyond just physical harm, mental harm, beyond, somebody looking to exploit them, those types of things, they have to be prepared. So I do think that we failed as men to generally protect women, but I do also think that a lot of it comes from us not systematically empowering people in general to be protected.
Okay, thank you again for that. I have a question. I know some time ago we did a podcast and we talked about the narrative of Black women saying that they were independent and they didn't need a man. And my hope is that you want a man, but your parents have given you the skills that you can still take care and do things for yourself. But that whole narrative came that, the independence of the Black woman came with the white women's movement. Do you understand that? So a lot of times it was a demasculation of Black men. No, I don't want if I had children, I wouldn't want my girls to think that they had to have a man, but I wouldn't want them out there with that narrative, I'm independent, I don't need a man, because that again says that we don't have to be with each other. But if we know anything about the creation, that a woman was made to be a man's helpment. So again, we wasn't meant to.
Vice versa.
Vice versa.
Right.
We wasn't made to be alone. It's okay. You don't have to have anyone, and it's okay if you choose to be single. But I do want it to, to present the fact that we were actually made to be together, and it's great we can find that companion. But also, it's good that women have the skills to be able to sustain by themselves. But I don't ever want that narrative to be, to kind of be put out there as to where, the Black woman doesn't support or doesn't want to have, the Black male, if that makes any kind of sense.
Oh, no, it makes perfect sense, right? Like, the Ankh, right? We all know what the Ankh symbol is, right? But a lot of people wear the Ankh and don't really understand where it came from and what it means, right? So, and there's a lot of debate about it. We'll go, but the top is the circle, and that is representative of the woman's womb. The bottom is a straight line, that's the phallus. and the man enters the woman, the two arms of the child is made out, right? Mm-hmm. So that's the symbol of life. That's what Ankh means, right? Now, if we want to get to the religious side of it, they took the child out of it, right? So I'm sorry, they took the woman out of it, right? So the Holy Trinity, which was supposed to be, if you look at the symbol, is man, woman, and child. And they say now the Son, the Father, and the Holy Ghost, right? So we'll leave that alone. But symbolically, if we just look at our nature, these are African symbols we just talked about a minute ago. When we went back to and looked at our roots, that was a symbol that came from Africa. You get what I'm saying? And the man, woman, and child, it means life. So yeah, you naturally design anatomically to want a woman. I'm sorry, as a man to want a woman at a certain age. At 15, at 16, my body started telling me, yeah, bro, you want something. You know what I mean? And that's what the whole puberty thing is, right? So, but think about how we handled that in Africa, right? We handled that with a rites of passage. The village knew when our people were about to start, our babies were about to start to transition into manhood and womanhood. And we didn't tell them when they was a man. We didn't say 18, you can do this, 21, you can do this. Your body said, guess what? You can produce a child. As a man and woman, you can bear a child. So guess what? When that started happening at 13 and 14, they took us into the woods, as we want to say, or into the jungle, however you want to take it. But they taught us what it meant to be a man and what it meant to be a woman within our communities. And afterwards, we came out. And from that point, you can bear. So when we start looking at teenage pregnancies and the world looks down at it, your body was telling you at that time, baby, it was okay for you to start bearing a child. It's okay for you to start wanting a child. The thing is, we programmed with the wrong information. We got water in our gas tank that didn't prepare us to be a man or a woman at the age in which we naturally can be a man or a woman. So that's all it is.
I got a question from when we spoke earlier. Well, the question obviously you know that question, but what led you to write your first book, Flipping the Scripts, and How to Reject Society's Narrative and Write Your Own Destiny?
All right, so yeah, I'll go back to it. It was like I said, it was a young man. I didn't even say his name because he probably in the NBA draft. I hope he gets drafted coming up. But yeah, he. I don't want to say that because now everybody that know who he is. Basically, I had a conversation with somebody that knew him, and they was like I said, they was not that he went down the wrong path. You know what I mean? Because obviously, you know what I mean. But it was kind of I didn't see this on him at 10 or 11 years old, right? You know what I'm saying? He was trying to be a straight A student, doing all these things. Fantastic kid, love him to death. You get what I'm saying? So I'm not saying it like it was bad, but when he got to a certain age, he started doing the certain things that I was doing. You get what I'm saying? That, we was running around, chasing women and doing all these things. And, they were notches in our belts more than they were the women that they are, or the girls that they are, to be respected. So I had this thought like, okay, well, what does, you know what I mean? How do boys keep playing out this same thing? You get what I'm saying? And I came up with the idea that the world gives us a script and tells us to, you know what I mean, to act it out, opposed to us being like, okay, here's what I've been given. I don't like this script. I want to play a different role. You get what I'm saying? So that's what kind of led to it. But like I say, situations in my life made me create it into a book. But even then, it wasn't even well thought out, right? Like, Beautiful the Way You Are. The cover is designed by a Black girl. Like all the artwork, the things you see in there was created and designed by, girls of a certain age, or Black girls or Black women. So, everything, every detail, you can probably see the dolphin in there. Get in the right spot. The dolphin, you can see the butterfly, you can see the rose. That's my grandma. You can see the rose, you can see the diamond, just different things like that. I thought this went all the way through, and I figured out what my voice was going to be. So it was more so like, all right, now I got a product. You get what I'm saying? Once I said I'm an author, okay, what are you writing? Like, how do you sell the book? You get what I'm saying? So it was more evolving and understanding that I had to grow.
I got another question. Oh, go ahead, Candace. Go ahead.
So in your book, you talked about statistics as far as how many Black girls get penalized in school by authority figures as opposed to white girls. I do know that when I was an undergrad and also when I was finished my master's and doing clinicals, I went back into the school system, and as it relates to Black children in general, Black boys also were treated more harshly and penalized more often, as opposed to white boys. Can you speak a little bit about the statistics that you came up with in correlation to Black girls being penalized by police officers, by authority figures, and teachers in the school system?
All right, cool. I'm gonna take that one. And I'm gonna kind of pivot a little bit on that too. But a lot of the statistics that we see is that we don't have. Well, I'm sorry. A lot of our kids find themselves in schools and school systems that have administrators that don't look like them, right? So I was teaching in Gary, and I'll never forget. So my best friend, basically my brother Rodney, his dad was the principal, like the dean. So I'm in his office, we kicking it, I'm teaching, we just, we talking. And a teacher walked in, she was a Teach for America. She was a younger white teacher. She's about 23, 24 years old, right? And she said, hey, can you check the cameras? Because I want to say one of the boys in my class was doing some stuff that was sexually inappropriate behind me. And I didn't catch him, but, I wanted to, I felt threatened, right? That's what she said. So Mr. Williams like, cool, I'll check it. I'm gonna look at it. He pulled it up. And he's like, I'm sitting there right, so now, mind you, I've been knowing Mr. Williams since I was 9 years old. So that's like my second dad. You feel me? So
shout out to Mr. Williams too. Shout out to him. Shout out to him.
You know what I mean? So we watching it, and the boy was doing the nay-nay. Now I'm dating myself because the nay-nay was a popular dance right there, but he's doing the nay-nay, right? Being a goof, he's doing the nay-nay, making his classmates laugh as the teacher's walking by, right? Mr. Williams called the teacher back. He said, hey, come see me, during your, come back and see me. He cuts on the video so she could see the dance. Then he cuts on the tape and show her like, hey, this is what he was doing. So she understood, oh, okay, he was just being a goof. Mm-hmm. I bring that up to what if it wasn't a Black man who culturally understood what this boy was doing in that situation? What if he was doing that in, we'll say, Chesterton, right? Yeah. And I'm not sure what Chesterton looks like, but last time I checked, Chesterton probably don't got too many Black administrators. No. Right? But I got a couple cousins that went through the Chesterton school system, so I know they got Black boys in their school, right? Mm-hmm. So what if that was the case? Suspension, and this is how the statistics start to roll up. So what you find is you find a lot of kids in situations that are being, not even, I want to say judged, but also being penalized, or the administrators aren't culturally sensitive or culturally responsive to what's going on. So if they don't understand what a kid may be doing, they look at it as threatening. You get what I'm saying? So here it is. Say this happens, you suspend this Black boy, and now I was just dancing, I was just being funny, right? So what message is now being sent to the school? I mean, what message is the school sending this young man, right? You don't understand me. So now I got to go back to the school and I don't feel understood. You know what I mean? I might not want to come back to the school. So there you go with the dropout rate, which is another statistic that starts to build, right? So the story that I wrote about was a girl who was feeling that way. Her mom thought she was doing her a service by taking her to a better school, and they were giving her this opportunity. And in the story, she's not being understood. She has a younger brother and a younger sister. Her mom works late night. Her mom gets in like 2 or 3 in the morning. So she's being the mom while she's there. She goes to school. She's cramping. She puts her head down. And the teacher's like, oh, just goes off on her. You know what I mean? So yeah, of course, she catches the attitude too. You know what I mean? I'm sleepy. I had to put my little brother was up all hours of the night. We know what situations our Black and brown babies are in. You know what I mean? So I created this scenario in which that was what happened. And the girl actually goes to she goes to Jackson State. I actually, started at Jackson State. I graduated to Tougaloo. But her mom sends her away for a summer camp where she learns about the criminal justice system. And that's why I get to talking about the statistics and things like that. And she begins to connect the dots of how these people are, how our people and Black and brown girls are being criminalized. But I did want to kind of pivot to another story that I talk about was the 75,000.
Yes, and that's I was going to go.
Your question.
Go ahead.
Right.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
No, so yeah, just as you know, so a lot of the book was doing research about things that are kind of like taboo topics, right? Like we're not talking about it being 75,000 Black girls and women missing in America, right? So this story deals with human trafficking. You know what I mean? Because let's be honest, that's a taboo. You know what I mean? Sex work, you know, kids and people go missing, and we see it all the time, right? You know what I mean? Whenever they come up on my screen, I share it out. But we on Facebook, we on Facebook Live right now. We on Instagram, right? And you'll see from time to time such and such is missing. You know what I mean? She ain't came home or this and that, right? But what do we do?
Actually, me and my sister were at Walmart last night, and we were looking on the wall where it had missing people, and a common denominator was when we looked at it, there were African American young girls missing, there were Spanish males missing, Spanish girls missing. It was all, people of color that was missing. And what we seen, what factored in, all of these kids went missing this year between January, February, and March of this year. January, February, March, they were either 14, 15, 16, and 17. The oldest that we seen was 20, but she didn't physically look like she was 20. She looked like she was maybe 16. All of their birthdays were kind of around the same time. So to me, those kids we have to look at it. All those kids are not upset with their parents. All of those kids are not having dysfunction at home. All of those kids are not being abused at home. Something has to be happening to these young, not just the girls, but also to the men that's in the same age. And so the realization of it, although people don't like to talk about it, we know that someone are snatching these children, and it's not being talked about enough. I actually had a conversation with my father and my mother. I said that, crime is crime. But to me, statistically, if it's something where it's doing with human trafficking, people continue to turn a blind eye. But if it was something to deal with anything else, pulling people over in traffic stops, them trying to lock up Black men for any other thing, they will be sent up a river. But you have these corporations that have gotten into trouble, judges, doctors, and lawyers that we know specifically have been part of a sex trafficking ring, and it's talked about for a couple of days, and you hear no more about it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So that's why I brought it up in the book. But it's exactly what you're saying, though. People don't like to talk about it, but why aren't we talking about it? Mm-hmm. Why aren't we doing more? You get what I'm saying? Like, you had the wherewithal to stop, pause, and notice, correct? You saw and actually you had to analyze it because you was like, okay, let me look, physical, all of these things, right? But what happens when it's not getting the media attention? What happens when you go home and that's just a thought on your brain? There's not a collective drive for us as a people to say, hey, this is going to stop, right? Like, look at Chicago, right? Chicago is known for what? Chirac, right? So many murders in a weekend. This didn't happen, right? And we've been so disillusioned to think that's Chicago's problem. You get what I'm saying? That person missing is that family's problem. You know what I mean? Man, that's sad. You know what I mean? That's messed up. But I got 3 girls. How dare I act as if I can say, oh man, that's messed up. Let me just share, and you know what I mean? Send it out and hope that baby get found. Nah, it got to be bigger than that. You know what I'm saying? So I knew when I wrote this book, that was one of the topics that I spoke out about. I put out. I'm actually trying to work with a couple of human trafficking groups to figure out how can these conversations be done in school. So the book comes along with a curriculum that I'm pretty much done developing, but we need to have more spaces in which there are opportunities for girls who may be trafficked to be able to call out. I think every public bathroom in America should have the number posted to where you could call rain and all of those things, domestic violence and abuse. Because what's the common denominator for anybody being trafficked or going through? Mm-hmm. The bathroom. Mm-hmm. The bathroom, right? You get what I'm saying? If someone is being smuggled, right? If somebody being trafficked, they're going to ask to what? Use the bathroom, right? Because you ain't gonna let this person that you use the bathroom in your car or whatever, you get what I'm saying? They're gonna go to the bathroom and they'll be securely watched. But when they go in there, they should be able to at least see the number that when they do get a chance to get to the phone, because they might be scared and not say nothing to the bathroom, the gas station attendant and nothing like that. But when they get that opportunity, they need to have seen that number enough times where they can send out their SOS call. So those are the type of things that I'm trying to promote, because 75,000, you know that there's no NBA arena that has 75,000 seats.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's 3 NBA arenas.
Yeah.
No NFL stadium has 75,000 seats. You know what I mean? I stay at a stone throw from SoFi Stadium. It don't see 75,000. You know what I mean? Only college football arenas are that big. So if you think about filling up the Lakers, the Bulls, and the Golden State Warriors Stadium and still have about 1,000 people to spare, or 1,500 people to spare. No, I'm sorry, 15,000 people to spare. That's a lot of black girls and women that's missing. And like you said, they're not just, you know what I mean, I'm mad, I'm upset, I'm just,
because there are a lot of black children who are very well taken care of. There are a lot of black children who are very loved, who live in the house with both their parents, not just their parents. Maybe they have a caste system where the parents live there and the grandparents, so they're very well taken care of. And all of these girls are just not leaving their homes. But I heard you say earlier that systematically, a lot of things have been done to the black culture. And this is another thing. It's systematic. Because if 75 black women are children, young women are missing, it's not just something that's happened, it's a system. And in order to fight against that system, we are better in numbers, right? If there's more people fighting to get these girls home, then that's how we change things.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, no doubt. And we're not talking about it. You know what I mean? It's like you said, it's a system. So if the most that you can do is put up a missing thing, well, I mean, I used to drink milk and see people on the milk cart. You get what I'm saying? So it's almost like, it's like Tupac talked about, you know what I mean, when the heart turns cold, right? I've seen it so much. It's been so much of our vernacular that people go missing that we don't let the alarm bells go off. Yeah, right. Yeah, we desensitized to it.
Just like the youth, they can stroll past a post of somebody fighting, or they can even stroll past someone being murdered, and it's like they can stroll past it, and it's like not 2 blinks, because they've seen it so much now they don't have empathy anymore, and that's what's sad.
Yeah. Oh, on my blog, I posted about John Morant, right? Like, and I know I'm kind of getting off, but I made the statement that, you know what I mean, he's going to be the poster child of what not to do. But think about it. I mean, John Morant had to grow up playing Grand Theft Auto. He had to grow up watching John Wick, right? So yeah, it's cool to have a gun. You know what I mean? Who's telling him it's not a status symbol to have a gun? Is it a smart decision? Nah. But if nobody stepped in and really told him what that means and what he's jeopardizing, yeah. But the society at large is subscribing to it. You get what I'm saying? I'm not saying that he didn't make a poor choice. I think he made a terrible poor choice. But when we're looking at a 23-year-old who hasn't had this experience, to give him $20 million, right? Like you say, they desensitized to it. Man, I had guns. You know what I mean? The object of the game in Grand Theft Auto is to get a gun and go steal somebody's car. You get what I'm saying? John Wick is a $1 billion franchise, and all his arsenal of guns is what he's celebrated for, right? So the same thing, we've been desensitized because we don't think that it's a real true issue, because every day somebody goes missing in America. We don't look at it as this is a problem that is affecting these families, right? So you talked about the girls coming from 2-parent home. In the story, the girl was on her way to college. She gets snatched off the street after taking her SAT, going to a black college homecoming game. She had like a 4.3 GPA, and I wrote it that way on purpose. Like, nah, it ain't just, you know what I mean, the girl who, you know what I mean, a single parent, her mom out on the streets. Right. You know what I mean? No, they snatch. They don't care. They just snatch people up. So, you know, I think that's one of the chapters I'm proudest about, because I think the type of awareness needs to be brought to us as a people to talk about these things and understand how to talk about it, understand how to identify if this person around you is being trafficked, or if this person around you is in a situation or in a cell or something like that, because they hiding in plain sight. They gotta be. I mean, we go into the grocery store every day, and somebody is being in that grocery store with us, or in that shopping mall with us, that's being trafficked or being held against their will. But we just don't know the signs, so we can't see it.
And let me just add to that. I'm not saying that children who are raised by a single mom or dad are not happy at home, because they are too. So just let me add that too. But again, these kids are not just leaving home, and it matters who they're looking for. And let's just be transparent. If it was a girl who wasn't of color and she went missing, it'd be a mass search for those individuals. But because people have exploited, women of color for so long, and men, if something happens to them, it's just like, you know what? Something happened. You might read a little 2 lines of it at the bottom of the paper. Something may flash across the screen, or we do more sharing on social media now than it does of getting media coverage. And why? Because sometimes we would rather spend, not all of us, but we would rather spend our time on things that are not producing anything versus supporting and helping one another. And so that's why you see that we don't get the media time or the radio time or the airtime to help find, these missing ones. Now they have this Amber Alert. We need to kind of figure out what the statistics look like as far as how many times a kid actually comes up missing that it is sent out for, brown people. I don't know what the statistics are. I'm not sure if you guys know either, but do a lot of them get returned home? And I know sometimes when they sent those Amber Alerts out that some kids do, they are being returned home, but in some cases it's family members who have them and they track them down, and we get, people get them back. But in other cases, when the people are taking these children from, Indiana to Texas to North Carolina to wherever they're going, they even send them across the waters. Are we ever seeing those kids make it back home?
Right, and you're right, because actually I contacted Black Ethnicity, and the highest amount of Black people, according to them, and I could be wrong, but is trans Black females, right? Because nobody's looking for them afterwards, right? So those are the type of things, like you said, that it's from all walks of life. And I don't want to say that people are different, but just it doesn't have any rhyme or reason in regards to who they're taking and what they're doing with them. And we do need to do a better job of figuring out what's happening to ours when they're taken and they're being taken away.
We have a question for you, Johnny. Well, more so an answer for me. So thanks, Johnny. Johnny Down says not very many kids of color are on the Amber Alerts.
Yeah, I see that too. Yeah.
Okay. So then again, that's very interesting. They create this whole system. Talk about kids missing, and they're still not representing the population of Black people that are missing.
I got a question for you. Of the topics you covered in this book, which of them you feel personally the strongest about?
It's two. And I'll go with the first one. One of them actually broke my heart, and it was so the story was about a girl who was being molested by her mother's boyfriend, right? So it was an actual story that kind of happened to a student of mine. She's like one of my favorite students. You ain't supposed to have favorites, but she was like one of my favorite students. And I would like joke about like her mom boyfriend, like, oh, that's your daddy, that's your daddy. And she would get like stone face. It's not my daddy. You know what I'm saying? Turns out 2 years later, I found out he was molesting her. You know what I'm saying? So it was one of those like, oh, okay. So I had to write that from a place of like self-healing, like, me myself apologizing to her for making that joke, because we were, you know what I mean? We had that type of relationship, but to come to find out those type of things, it made me check myself like, all right, although we could be on a personal level, I got to be careful with what I'm saying to who I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing we don't want to talk about. We don't want to talk about these creepy uncles and all this other stuff. Our babies, boys and girls, are being molested at a very, very high rate. We talked about Me Too earlier a little bit off camera, but those are the things that, you know what I mean, we can't keep turning a blind eye to. You know what I mean? Those are things that, and I feel strong about these things because that ain't the white man. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's something that if we stood up and we check, we can check that on our own. You feel what I'm saying? We can't keep turning a blind eye or acting like, oh, that's just how such and such is, or that's just him. No, we need to put our foot down, fam. You can't come around no more. You know what I'm saying? Put them on blast, put it out there. Either they stop or we got to go get them locked up. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't got no love for, no respect for nobody that's a child predator. You know what I'm saying? Molest, all that type of stuff. You know what I mean? Hey, I ain't for it, but that's one of the topics that I talked about. So in the story, the girl had the talent of being a great writer, but she was cutting, she was self-harming herself because she was going through this and she didn't have any way out. But what she did was she was silent because she had a little sister that was like 18 months younger than her. So she said, I'll endure it to make sure that he doesn't come for her. You get what I'm saying? So the story was like Fifi in the secret place. Let me see. But she had a notebook that she wrote all about, you know, Ebony and the Happy Place, right? And her sister was Felicia, so Fifi. But she wrote about what was happening to her. So when he would come to molest her, she would create these worlds in her mind of where she would go so she could take her out-of-body experience and wouldn't feel it. She would just put her mind in a different place. So those are the types of things that, you know, we talked about, and that I talked about there, right? And I pointed out that, you know, one of the most detrimental things is that we have this thought process that says, what happens in my mama's house stays in my mama's house. You know what I'm saying? That was a big theme of that chapter, because now that says that whatever happens to you can be an avenue for you to continue to be abused, right? So that was one of the things that I talked about, and there was the other chapter that I talked about that I felt strongest about was like Beauty is a Beast, and I like that story because personally it talked about like bullying. So the girl who was the dark-skinned, heavy-set girl, she was being bullied and things like that when she created an app.
I'm sorry, Alan, I had a follow-up question for you. Sorry.
Okay.
You talked about sexual assault and molestation in families. And I heard you say the creepy uncle. Let's just be clear that not only men molest family members, but also women. And I think that Johnny said that what goes on this house stays in this house has to stop. And I know that in families, they oftentimes tell their children that, so their children are afraid to kind of speak out about what's happening. But that narrative have to be stopped, because that is one of those things they talk about, generational curses. Again, and a lot of that stuff is learned behavior. We understand that hurt people actually hurt people. And so if they are passing those things along and passing those things around, it's stuff that they have been taught, or also stuff that they have seen in their family. And no one has had the courage to step up and say, hey, I am not going to invite Uncle such and such over, because every time he sees this person, he's re-victimizing them. What has happened in families is the person who was the victim, they are uninvited to events so that the predator can be comfortable and he can still come around, or she can still come around. But the person who has been hurt, they can't. We didn't invite you because we thought you wouldn't feel comfortable. And so, yes, a lot of people still have wounds that they need to heal from, whether it is a female that was molested by a male, or a male that was molested by a female. And so, just as you guys said, you have to they have to stop that, and people have to learn how to speak out. And I heard you say, like, if he doesn't stop the behavior, or if she doesn't stop the behavior after, you know, they've talked to him, they went to counseling, then they have to go to jail, or there has to be some type of penalty. Definitely agree with that.
Off top, you know what I mean? I think that's one of the things that, you know, like I said, those are the things that I talked about in the book, because what happens to those child, that child? What happens to that, you know, and I'm glad you brought it up. I was kind of thinking to some of the themes that I went through with the story, but part of the story, because it's not 100% the young lady story that I was speaking about. It was actually a male student of mine, right? So a male student of mine was being molested by his uncle. And this kid was like on the straight A path. He was like taking middle college classes, all of this stuff. And then in 8th grade, he quote unquote snapped, right? Everybody like, what's wrong with him? You know what I mean? Came out, his uncle was molesting him, right? So give you an example of what happened. We talked about like criminalization and all those things. A boy behind him was trying to take the chair from him, right? And went behind him like to snatch the chair out. And I say this boy turned around and beat the brakes off this boy. I argued that the boy didn't need to be suspended. And they was like, well, why he don't need to be suspended? He was like, I said, it was trauma. What position you think his uncle was in when he was behind him? And it was a big thing about it, you know what I'm saying? But those are the types of things, like we want to say, you know what I mean? Yeah, that the molesting happens from the opposite sex. Sometimes it happens from the opposite, of the same sex. You know what I'm saying? I have family members that was, you know, molested by, I got a female family member You know what I mean? That was I have a female cousin that was molested by another female cousin. You get what I'm saying? So those types of things that we act as if, and I use the uncle, you know what I mean? But the uncle is anybody that's the predator. You get what I'm saying? The boyfriend, the uncle could be the boyfriend, the mama boyfriend, or whatever. So I tried to use a term that would, hit home, but anybody that's doing these types of things, we got to talk about it. You know what I mean? Because that ain't got nothing to do with the white man and the system and all that. Right. No, that means that we, like we talked about, Gene, protecting and empowering ourselves, right? You know what I mean? I need to be able to empower my child to say, hey, no matter what, if you find yourself in any situation, you are able to tell mom or dad what has happened to you. I'm going to believe you. You know what I mean? I'm going to choose you. And those are the types of things that aren't being articulated to these babies. And, grandmama is, you know what I mean? She don't want to see her baby boy go to jail. So this, and was she being fast? I mean, we could go there, but you all remember how many people was trying to say that the girls was that fault for what R. Kelly did?
Right.
Let's be honest. They were trying to say, oh man, she dressing this way or this. We messed up in the head. No, fam, that's a baby. That's a baby. You know what I mean? This book took me to so many different places. I have to be careful not to tell my own child what I would do to somebody if somebody messed with me, right? Because I was watching something, and it was May Maximum Culpa, right? And it was about the Roman Catholic abuse scandal, right? Like when what are those the Roman pastor? What those called? Fathers. The Catholic priest. Yeah. The priest, right? So one of the boys came and asked his dad. He said, "Hey, if somebody was to molest me or touch me, what would you do?" And he said, "Oh, I would surely kill him. If anybody lay a hand on you, I would kill him." And the boy never told that he was being molested because he didn't want to see his father go to jail.
Wow.
Because his reaction was, guess what? If I tell what happened to me, then my father's going to go kill somebody, and I know for sure my father's going to go to prison. You get what I'm saying? So I'll endure this to make sure that my father doesn't go do something that I'm sure he will go do. So it's the type of things, it's like, bro, we got to figure out, no, we don't have to figure out. We start speaking out. You know what I mean? We got to speaking out and stopping people to allowing these babies to be prey for these predators, and we need to be able to say it at every angle. You should have nowhere to go in which you feel comfortable if you're the type of person that preys on anybody. You know what I mean? I don't care if you're the freaky old drunk dude that's, you know what I'm saying, divorced and it's a big booty girl to walk by and you feel like that's cool, or it's a woman. No, all that stuff we need to cut that out because people are humans and they have feelings and we got to start speaking out against them.
I got a question for you. And we'll try to get you out of here.
Oh, no, bro. I got time.
Okay.
I got time today.
So,
I got time today.
How do you respond to people who may question you writing about female issues being that you are a man?
Oh, man, that's a good question.
Shout out to Johnny, man. Shout out to the men that are on this pod, that's on the show, because, again, we hear the idea that black men don't protect women and our black women. And so I think I know there's some that don't, but also know there's some that do. And so shout out to those brothers that's participating in this podcast. But go ahead.
And I echo that for sure. Shout out to them all. But honestly, it's been two-sided. First, I'll speak to so I'm using the book to talk to youth groups. So I'm putting it out there to different, you can say mentoring groups, but different groups of, churches or schools that's working with young girls in the community, because it's a conversational piece. So putting it out there, a lot of the women coordinators are like eating it up, loving it. Like, oh, I love that it's a man speaking to these issues, because there's too many times that men don't speak to these issues, right? But I did receive some of the pushback from women saying, well, as a man, how could you speak to these things, right? And shout out to my big sister, because she talks to me all the time about we have a male side and we have a masculine side and we have a feminine side, right? And if we going back to Africa, actually the ultimate energy is your female energy, right? Like if we know anything, the energy to produce comes from the woman, right? The creation, right? Like, yeah, men we can put out, but in terms of being actually able to fully develop, that comes from a woman. So whenever you fully develop anything, right? Steph Curry developing his jump shot. That's his female energy. You know what I'm saying? Reggie Bush being able to shake and bake on his feet. That's his female energy, right? So channeling your female energy is something that you can do to create and to produce, right? So any way we want to look at it, that's really what that is tapping into. So as I was, writing this book, I thought about, like, man, okay, here is person A or person B that then told me these different things. Now, how do I embody what they went through and what they're experiencing, right? So majority of the stories I am writing from a girl's perspective, right? Or a woman's perspective. But the story that we talked about, the 75,000, I actually wrote the story in the perspective of a mother. She's looking for her daughter the entire story. You get what I'm saying? One of the stories, Baby Girl, was about a girl who was promiscuous, who didn't have a relationship with her father, right? Actually, when you read the story, that was me. I didn't have my biological father in my life. So when I was feeling rejected, I felt like I needed female attention to feel as if what I felt whole. You get what I'm saying? And you got a lot of women who are going through those things. So I think that if we understand that there's a masculine and feminine side to all individuals, it's just a matter of being able to, one, succumb to your lower self, suppress your lower self and tap into your higher self and say, you know what, I can be as much as I am a man, I can go into my feminine spots in order to say, okay, let me allow these emotions out, right? Because as we talked about, what happened? We grew up, Gene. If somebody said something to you the wrong way, man, you acting like a female. You know what I'm saying? So that's basically saying I can't have an emotion as a man, right? Mm-hmm. And then think about what we would say to that. You get what I'm saying? That immediately means, oh, that's wrong. I can't be like no girl, right? Mm-hmm. Case in point, my son is in karate, right? And he cries, right? Well, he used to, right? When he started, he would cry. And all the other guys wondering, like, when he would come off the mat, I'll hug him and I'll kiss him. And they'd be like, oh man, you know what I'm saying? Why you ain't telling him to cry? My son started whooping their butts, you know what I'm saying? And I'll tell him it's always okay to cry, because a lot of times when men cry, it ain't always about us being able to feeling soft or nothing like that.
Right.
Sometimes that's a masculine energy we don't know how to control. It's burning in my chest. I'm so upset. I'm so angry. I'm just, and it comes out as tears. You get what I'm saying? So if you understand that there's different energies and different things that's going on, I can't do nothing else but cry. I seen plenty of people get in fights and cry. Straight dude, they boxing, cry. It's coming out. You know, so those energies and those emotions, we can't label them and put them in a place or put them in a situation in which we denigrate them, right? What's wrong with crying? What's wrong with being a woman? What's wrong with being feminine? You get what I'm saying? So it's just a deprogramming of our minds, a deprogramming of our ways, because we've been taught to be, as I go back to, we've been powered with water instead of the gas that we need to push these engines through. So it's just a matter of me being strong enough to tap into my manhood by saying I can tap into what it means to be a woman and express that. You muted.
Unmute yourself. Mute yourself. You gotta unmute yourself. Can't
mute it.
I'm sorry, guys. This is my last question that I wanted to ask you. So the book is very interesting, and I think it speaks to a lot of things that we are dealing with in our culture and in our society. So how there's so many things that we have to conquer, so many goals that we want to accomplish. After writing your book, what would you say, to the youth, to the young women, and also to the Black women, in order to change the narrative of a lot of stereotypes that they are dealing with?
Talk. Be transparent and talk, right? Like, you all are doing the most important thing that could be done outside of putting up the money to build the institutions, to take over the school systems and the culture. You all are talking. You all are having a conversation, right? And a lot of the times people feel as if talk is cheap, and no, that ain't true. Talking is a form of healing. You get what I'm saying? Writing is a form of therapy. Talking is a form of therapy, right? Like, if something is wrong with you mentally, what do they tell you to do? Go see a therapist, right? What is the therapist doing? Talking. You know what I'm saying? Talking you through it. So that's the thing that I think that we need to actually to put out there, that it's okay to not be okay when you're not okay. It's okay to be great when you're great. It's okay to hurt. It's okay to show that you've been hurt. It's okay to say that you've been done wrong. It's okay to say that I don't like this. It's okay to express who you are and not do it in a way in which you being intrusive or overbearing to someone else when you say something, right? Like if you said something, Candace, that I didn't agree with, I wouldn't come at you and take it personal and be like, oh man, y'all got me on this podcast, y'all talking crazy. No, you just don't agree. I don't agree with what you're saying. You get what I'm saying? And that's okay. It's okay. We can see a difference of viewpoints, right? Because usually if there's a mutual respect between two people that have a conversation, right? There's a mutual respect there. Eventually, you can get to a place in which you can see the other person's point if you know how to listen. You're not concerned with just giving your point, but you can also see where and make that person see your point and come to some type of happy understanding or happy medium that allows you to grow. So I think the narrative is that, like I encourage my students that still tap in with me. Hey man, talk. You know what I mean? You went through this, baby girl, you went through this. So how are you gonna stop it? Right? Because if you live with your secrets tucked away in a closet, you get what I'm saying, then that's what you're gonna tap into, and that's what you're gonna transfer to your child, right? Because guess what? They might not know your story. So it's up to you to express what you've been through and be okay. Be okay with being looked at by people that don't know no better, because it's up to you to share your truth. I mentioned earlier that I was a teacher for 16 years. The very first day of school, when my kids come in, I tell them that my mom was pregnant at 13. She had my older brother at 14. She got pregnant again at 14. Had my sister at 15. Had me when I was 19. You know what it is to them black kids? Oh, Mr. Gaines know what's up. He been there. I grew up on welfare. We had food stamps. I remember when money was white. You know what I'm saying? And mind you, my mama got 3 different baby daddies. Me, my older brother, my older sister don't look alike. You know what I'm saying? So when in Gary and South Central Los Angeles, when that is told to a kid, oh, okay, he understands what I'm going through. Whatever we about to have in terms of a learning experience, Mr. Gaines can relate because he's open and he's transparent. So by me sharing my truth and sharing, something, and my mom, she don't hide it. You know what I mean? She told us to be proud of it because guess what? Through it all, she about to turn 60. In like 8 days, she turned 60. She's a beautiful woman, a joyous, most loving energy that you could ever find. And that's her story. That's her truth. So she told us to not shy away from those things. So to go back to your question, just speaking out to it.
Okay, thank you. If people are wanting to purchase your book or learn more about the book, how can they purchase the book or order the book?
Flippingthescripts.com.
Okay. All right.
Y'all type that in the thing. I don't know. I don't got no. Can I type it or no? Just flippingthescripts.com.
Amaru will list it on. He'll type in. He'll list it up, and we'll get it out to everybody who's interested in actually buying the book. And Amaru, do you have any other questions or thoughts before we do the word of the day?
I don't. I just thought that this was very refreshing because, again, it's coming from a male perspective, and so we don't. Go ahead. I think she said she couldn't understand what you said, Alan, about your book, flippingthescripts.com. I'm putting it in the comments now. But we rarely see this. We rarely hear the perspective of a male when it's pertaining to women and black girls, period. And so for me, it's refreshing because, again, we don't have that narrative. We don't always have that point of view. And so as I was reading this, I was actually chuckling because some of the things that you were talking about in the story about Lisa, I'm thinking about my daughter or thinking about other stories we heard when we were kids, right? So I thought it was just a very savvy point of view and how you were approaching it. So that was my thoughts on it. So
I appreciate that, bro.
Mm-hmm. And the word of the day really is what's, as we close, is family. And the Swahili, which is easy, familia, the Swahili interpretation of that, but I'll let Candace take it.
A group of one or parents and their children living together as a unit. And I chose to do family because, for one, we talked about the scripture on Ephesians. Secondly, the book And I wanted just to relate that oftentimes we talk about what family is and we always relate it to blood, but sometimes you're going to have friends or school teachers or people in your community that are going to be just as close to you as family would be, that want to see the success of you. They want to see you do well. And so all the time, DNA does not make you family, but it is how you communicate, how you treat each other, loyalty and respect that you give to one another. So that is why I chose family.
We appreciate your time, brother. We might have to do it again because I also want to talk about flipping the scripts, obviously, because we want, we're bound to show. So I like your work. I love what you're doing, even though you're all the way on the West Coast. So we appreciate your being able to adjust because I know you're 3 hours ahead. So I don't understand.
I'm behind.
Oh, you behind? Oh, I'm sorry.
Behind. Yeah, I'm behind.
Yeah, so it's late. It's late. So
no, I'm behind. It's like 6 something.
That's what I'm saying. Oh, I'm thinking the same way. Yeah. No, what I think his website is in the chat. So that's what I'm throwing in the chat, flippingthescripts.com. And so can you talk about what's on the website real quick before we get out of here?
Yeah, man, it's actually going to be rebranded. I'm actually, I told you a couple weeks ago, man, I'm going dark, man. I haven't posted anything. I got some different things coming out, but actually right now the website is basically about the book Beautiful How You Are. In a couple weeks is actually going to be about what my new mission is, and it's Black men's health, man. Too many of us brothers are tapping out early, man, in terms of health and things like that. So I'm going around towards, fathers and sons, but basically fathers and families fitness. Well, just put that in things, flipping the script with an S. But yeah, so just, the website basically is where you can find the book. I actually took down Flipping the Scripts, the first book, because I'm actually going to rebrand it. I think it needs some retooling, man. But yeah, just our fathers and sons, fathers and families fitness, you know what I mean? We got to tap into us being here for the long haul, you know what I mean? As a father, I know that I want to see my kids grow up and do those things. So that means I got to exercise. I mean, I got to eat right. I mean, I got to do all these things that's going to allow me to see myself, until my later years. I just turned 40 last year, but I ain't trying to tap out at 56 or 57 years old or 62. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, some people are like, oh, that's a long life. But at the same time, you know what I'm saying? My son is 8. You know what I'm saying? I don't want him burying me at 30.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If I tap out at 62, that means that I got to eat right. I mean, I got to exercise. I mean, and a lot of the things that. Yeah.
We got to wrap up. We gotta wrap it up. So everybody else, thank you again for giving us all the information. We have listed your book. Amara can go ahead and list it again if anybody is interested in purchasing the book. The first one and the second one, I'm sure that he would greatly appreciate it. We appreciate you actually coming on to the show. Also, if people have questions for you, is there any way that they can send you messages, DM you, or different things like that?
Yeah. So just either on the website or just Allen Gaines, you can search me, just look me up. Yep. And then, the script flipped on Instagram, but yeah, hit me up.
We'll post your stuff on our page, so we'll share your stuff on our page also. So we appreciate you. We try to keep it at an hour, and so that's why we're,
oh no worries, man.
So I appreciate your time, brother. We love you. We actually have you on again soon. And if anybody else have any questions, we're good. Y'all have a good night.
I just want to say thank you for coming on. The book was very interesting. I appreciate you sending us and letting us get a first look at it. Thank you so much again. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Peace.